What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So right now, there's a lot of anticipation around a Nintendo Direct happening in the next couple of weeks, certainly as we head into February. But now there's a game that's being rumored and put out there through quote-unquote leaks that does have me wondering how people will react to it and everyone's thoughts, so I figured we would go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about an interview with Phil Spencer where he went over their year in review for 2022 and then also discussed his thoughts on 343 and Halo, and we'll also be taking a look at some leaks around Horizon Zero Dawn, but not the single-player game, the multiplayer one. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps that a ton. And if new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're gonna start today with Dead Space Remake. It's out now, came out on Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. Great time to start playing a horror game. Certainly would have been weird to start that up in the middle of the night, but anyway, the game itself is fantastic. I am absolutely enjoying my time with it, certainly giving me some nostalgia back to 2008, which is weird because it seems like that still shouldn't be a year that's thought of as nostalgia. But anyway, we do have some graphical issues in the game, and it's something I noticed when I turned the game on. It doesn't look as good as Callisto Protocol, just in general, but there are some weird oddities going on. For example, you can see this posted up by John Linneman. Says, for those curious, this is what VRS does to the image quality on PS5. The actual resolution is much higher, look at Isaac, but VRS causes shadowed regions to basically lose most of their detail. Some screenshots here giving an idea as to what he's referring to. Well, over on Reddit, the EA community manager did respond, saying, the team is working on a patch that will improve the issue on PS5. This patch will also provide an option to disable VRS on PC. They say no ETA quite yet, but I'll keep you updated. So, as I mentioned, Dead Space is a lot of fun, and I think because of that, people are able to look past some of the visuals that can look kind of soft on like the PlayStation 5, especially in performance mode, but we'll see what they have for us with this update when it's ready to release. Also, it looks like the marketing cycle for Spider-Man 2 on the PlayStation 5 is kicking into gear. There was this trailer that released, basically a commercial, but it was sort of framed as a trailer, really, and yes, for Spider-Man 2, it's a live-action promo. This aired in Australia, and because not everyone knew that, they saw a caption of coming spring 2023, people immediately thought, whoa, this game's out in 3 or 4 months. Well, not necessarily, because it's in Australia. Spring there in the US, for example, what, fall? So it still seems to be on track for when I'm anticipating it, which is probably in, I'm going to say September or October, but good to see the marketing cycle starting up for one of my most anticipated games of the year. Oh, and we do have a little update on Advanced Wars 1 and 2 Reboot Camp, as now we're basically expecting this to be reintroduced in some fashion. We can see this posted over on My Nintendo News saying, Walmart and other retailers have started listing Advanced Wars Reboot Camp once again, pointing to Amazon Canada, Best Buy, Walmart, EB Games, and list goes on. So it does appear that Nintendo is preparing for this game to go on sale again, to take pre-orders and all this. And I've been trying to figure out how they're going to go about reintroducing Advanced Wars. I guess they could technically just play the trailer once again at the next Nintendo Direct and just change the date, and that's that, just move along. I also wonder if they would consider just doing a tweet and releasing it in a month. Like, really the run-up and release for it will be very quick. I thought about a Shadow Drop, but because it will have a retail facing, it makes it a bit harder to do that. So I'm thinking they announce it potentially in a tweet, and then it just goes on sale a month or so later. So I'm looking forward to it. Again, we should have already played and beaten it, but real world event situations, Nintendo trying to be sensitive around all of that. But you figure they gotta release it eventually, so it seems like they're preparing to do that soon. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with a game that's being rumored currently for the Switch, and I think makes a lot of sense to be announced maybe in this upcoming Nintendo Direct. Now, this is coming from Zippo on their blog that they have, where they'll talk about different releases that are upcoming, and some things they're correct about. Some of them are kind of obvious. Others, you know, they get out in front of it pretty early on, and it takes a couple of years. Even they've been talking about a certain Fire Emblem remake, it feels like, for a while now. But the latest one I do tend to agree with them on, which we can see this posted up over again on their blog, where they say Nintendo is preparing a brand new Mario sports game, this time being developed by Bandai Namco and Now Production, and it's very likely to be a new installment in the Mario Baseball series. Remember, we haven't had a new Mario Baseball game in, what, over a decade now? That was back on the Wii, Mario Super Sluggers, as actually is pointed out here. And they say that their baseball did appear in Mario Sports Superstars for the 3DS in 2017, but we'd be talking about a standalone baseball game with, you know, all the Mario characters and everything. Zippo does mention Now Production, and then they point to the Pac-Man World remake, which isn't a bad remake. It doesn't feel necessarily as polished as you'd expect maybe from a Mario or just Nintendo game in general, but it really, I think it was good enough for what they were putting out there with the price point of Pac-Man World Remake and what they had to work with there. So I do think something like a Mario Baseball makes a lot of sense, considering all the other Mario sports games are present on the Switch, and they've kind of been going along just one by one, and Mario Baseball would be the next one up. The thing I'm concerned about is what we should all be concerned about, since we saw Mario Strikers and Mario Tennis and Mario Golf, and that is that the game shows up in what feels like a beta state at times, right? Like, Mario Strikers had very little content. They were doing updates, but it still doesn't feel like a complete game overall. Certainly not something you would look at and say that's definitely a full price title. So I'm thinking of Mario Baseball, and I'm kind of getting those same concerns. I did enjoy Mario Baseball on the GameCube, so I feel like if the gameplay was just more refined, polished, and had a few extra wrinkles to it, it would be a lot of fun to play on the Switch. I didn't really get into it on the Wii as much, but you figure you have the Joy-Cons, they can do some of the motion controls, maybe a home run derby or something, or who knows, maybe they just like to play the entire game with motion controls. But if they had a decent season mode or even campaign you can go through with light RPG elements, but a good multiplayer online component where you can play with a bunch of friends, that could end up being a lot of fun. So I'm hopeful once again for a Mario sports game, and I feel like I've been burned every single time, sometimes more than others, Mario Strikers versus, say, Mario Tennis as an example, but hey, here's hoping, right? So fourth time's the charm. Either way, I think this is one that would most likely be announced here pretty soon during that Nintendo Direct that everyone figures is happening in the first 3 weeks or so in February. Next up, let's talk about Phil Spencer, as he had a very good interview with IGN, who actually asked him some tough questions about Xbox, definitely in 2022, but also going forward with 343, Halo, and all of this. First, though, let's hear from Phil Spencer as to what he thought about 2022 and some of the criticisms around releasing just games. We can see this posted up on IGN, saying, but our commitment to our fans is that we need to have a steady release of great games that people can play on our platform. And we didn't do enough of that in 2022, there's no doubt. And fundamentally, that's on me. I'm the head of the business. The commitment we have to our customers to continue to deliver great games is something that I take seriously, the teams take seriously, and 2022 was too light on games. And I feel like this is obvious to most people that Xbox, they didn't really release any first-party games at all, or at least sizable first-party games in 2022. They had Pentiment towards the end of the year. Grounded came out of its extended beta period, but nothing major, especially once Starfield and Redfall got pushed out of 2022 into 2023, and now we're still wondering when Starfield is going to show up. Will it even happen in the first half of this year? It's looking unlikely at this point. At least we know Redfall is coming up in May, but Phil Spencer directly acknowledging that, yeah, it's what we all figured and what we could see, but I know there are a lot of people who thought that it was still a really, really good year for Xbox, but hey, there's Phil Spencer acknowledging that it really wasn't. And if you think about what they're trying to do with Game Pass, they need consistent releases from their first party, because if they have good first party output, remember, those were all games that can go into Game Pass that aren't at risk of necessarily coming out of Game Pass, because those third party deals eventually run up. The only first party only game that they would have to worry about, or series, would be Forza because of all the different car licenses and all of this. But if you have unique and interesting games like Hi-Fi Rush, those will stay in there for the long run and can continue to get signups going forward. And from there, Phil Spencer does mention, hey, 2023, we're excited, it's time, and I don't want to get into the idea of telling people to wait until, which is kind of the saying that's going around online, wait until E3, which he did talk loosely about E3, essentially saying we'll have an event around E3, but I guess he technically didn't say we'll absolutely be there. But if they're across the street having a presentation on the Sunday of E3, most people are going to say, oh cool, Xbox, they're at E3. But when asked about 343 and Halo, because there's been concern that, well, Halo could be on its way out, sort of, for Microsoft. Maybe 343 looks to doing something else. Maybe they just get disbanded completely and Xbox moves on from, like, their most iconic character in games, at least for the Xbox brand. Well, here's a message from Phil Spencer during that interview saying, Halo remain critically important to what Xbox is doing, and 343 is critically important to the success of Halo. Going on to say, yeah, 343 is in place to develop Halo, and they will be the main developer going forward. And while that seems to be disappointing for some people out there, if Halo's going to exist, 343 will be the one doing it, and that's kind of it. No 343, I don't really think there's much of a future for Halo at all. So it makes sense for Phil Spencer to say that, but it really comes down to, will they bring in studios outside of 343 to work on other modes or even single-player components, like we hear of Certain Affinity, who is working on some sort of mode for Halo Infinite, and I'm hoping we find out about that one maybe later on this year. Next up, let's talk about Horizon Zero Dawn, but not the single-player component, the multiplayer. This is something that's not only been rumored, it's also sort of leaked out there with that list that we had that mentioned Death Stranding 2 and others, but also we've seen it in different job listings. Like the Guerrilla was working on some sort of multiplayer game that appears to be tied to the Horizon Zero Dawn or just Horizon universe. Well, now we have leaked footage of it, and while I can't show it to you here because, well, Sony would definitely go around, I think they're starting to pull down some of the footage because it's very clear that it's early alpha. In fact, the person who posted it up on Reddit mentioned it's from 2020 and it is very early footage, but there were a few things from this. Like, we can take a look. This is over on Eurogamer, where they say it seems that the stylized look is available for all to see thanks to leaks footage allegedly taken from Horizon Forbidden West alpha multiplayer test. The video was posted up on Reddit from Bird on Wheels, who says the footage reportedly taken in summer 2020 is very old and includes a join PC and join PS4 option in the alpha build, hinting that it may eventually include cross-platform connectivity. Now, the leak footage definitely appears to be early on, as it's missing textures and at some point just objects in the world itself that the character is clearly reacting to. So it's mostly them just kind of running around in this very basic looking world. And if you look at game development, typically the visuals and polish, all that stuff comes later. This appears to be when they were just trying to get things up and running to where they can work on QA and just making sure the skeleton of the game, if you will, is functioning correctly. But the stylized look, I think that is going to be something that will be talked about quite a bit. There was also some concept art that was pulled from the alpha build after people, of course, started to look into it further, and doesn't appear like it's going to look exactly like how we've seen Horizon so far. This one going towards, I don't want to say a Fortnite look, but definitely more in that stylized fashion. And you know, the more I've thought about the idea of a multiplayer-driven Horizon game, the more I've wondered if Sony and Guerrilla Games are trying to create like a Monster Hunter competitor, Monster Hunter-like game where you and a couple of other people can go around and just hunt down some of these different mechanical beasts in the world. And as you defeat them, you take some of their pieces and create armor and weapons. And I think that could work really well for the Horizon universe, especially with some of the scale of these different creatures. And the Monster Hunter formula, it clearly works. Capcom, I mean, revitalized the entire company on Monster Hunter World, so Sony has the IP that's popular, and it lines up well with Monster Hunter's formula. At least we kind of feel like it does in theory, so I do wonder if that's the direction Sony would be taking this entire thing. Well, the fact that it also says PC, I think you could see crossplay. It might even be free to play. So a lot of questions still remaining here, but it is interesting to see the gameplay footage get out there of a build from a couple of years ago. Makes you wonder when this thing could be ready to show. Once again, maybe something they're ready to reveal later on this year as part of their big live service push. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about PlayStation Plus for the month of February. This appears to be the Essentials Collection, and it's leaked out from the same source that we cover every single month, and it's been correct every single month. We can see this posted up over on Twitter from Billy, and this is, we can see 4 different titles here, February 2023, starting with Ollie World, that's the PS5 and PS4 version of it. Then we have Mafia Definitive Edition on the PS4, Evil Dead the Game, PS5 and PS4, and then Destiny 2 Beyond Light, PS5 and PS4. Destiny 2 Beyond Light makes sense. I mean, they own Bungie, so sure, they can throw that in there, but they do have a little star next to Mafia because it may be replaced depending on the region. So we'll see when this gets confirmed and announced, but they do have the date being February 7th to March 6th. So we'll probably see this get announced sometime this upcoming week. And looking at the lineup here, it's not bad. Ollie World is a pretty fun skateboarding adventure game. Mafia Definitive Edition to me though is the standout here. And really, if you've never played it before and it just goes into Essentials and you have it, it's definitely worth a download. It's a remake of the original Mafia game, which is a great starting point for anyone to try it out. Visually speaking, though, it's good, and it's actually pretty good narrative-driven experience. It's really, it is a linear style game. It has some elements where you kind of drive around in the city and do different things and kind of explore, but it has a set path, so it doesn't overstay its welcome in it. It's an easy recommendation if it's just part of a subscription service that you're already part of, but not a bad lineup. I'd look for this to be announced sometime this week. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're gonna take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, which Mario sports series is your favorite? Mario Strikers is number 1. Okay. Then we have Mario Tennis, then Mario Golf, and Mario Baseball is the last one. Really? See, I thought Mario Baseball would have been a bit more popular. I definitely didn't think it would be the last one there on the list in terms of votes. I had a lot of fun with Mario Baseball on the GameCube, but now that I think about it, I guess I do remember Strikers and Tennis more fondly than Mario Baseball, but let me know which one of these was your favorite, because I do think Mario Baseball will have some excitement behind it, say if it gets announced here in the next month or two. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from State, saying, I'm excited for Tears of the Kingdom, but I truly hope a new game like A Link Between Worlds is in the works. I don't want every new Zelda to be like Breath of the Wild. Yeah, I definitely hear you on that one. I wouldn't mind more like top-down isometric Zelda games. The only issue, and I do wonder if Nintendo is thinking about this now, because the push to $70 is on. I mean, Microsoft's doing it. Sony's been doing it. I think Nintendo will do it when they go to their next generation device. And I understand for them, it's okay, it's not this big open world 3D experience like Breath of the Wild. Is that still worth the same amount? For me, if the game is really fun, then yeah, it is, but there's still that sense of maybe this is a $50 or $60 game, and that's the other interesting aspect of this. Let's say Nintendo goes to $70 for their Breath of the Wild or big Mario Odyssey experiences. Would there be room for a $50 or $60 game then to be like a Link's Awakening style? Maybe they go back and do something with Link, as you say, Link Between Worlds, a new top-down Zelda game, and they're like, okay, yeah, it's $60. It's not the full $70. If that's the case, I don't mind them moving to that price point if they can deliver more and more experiences like they have in the past of these smaller style games. Even 2D titles kind of get viewed in that sense, but you look at Metroid Dread and it is completely worth the price tag. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Was the potential for a new Mario Baseball game to get revealed here soon. Would you be excited for a new Mario Baseball, or would you have concerns around another Mario sports game on the Switch? And then also, what about Horizon Zero Dawn with that multiplayer gameplay that leaked out? Do you like what you saw there, or maybe you're concerned about the art style? Let me know. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.